Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Owen talks about sports and movies. Thank you for checking out today's video. Always appreciate the support. Let's get into it. After dominant wins by Alabama against LSU, where Mac Jones played fantastic again, Devontae Smith had an epic 231-yard, 3-touchdown performance, and Najee Harris added another about 120 yards on the ground with 3 touchdowns, and a Clemson win over Virginia Tech, where they looked like the dominant Clemson team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. I believe we're on a collision course for another Alabama versus Clemson national championship game, and this just goes to highlight the biggest problem with college football. College football's power gap. I'm going to explain what that is, who falls into that, how it's happened, and how to fix it. But make sure you leave your thoughts on this problem down below. Let's get into it. So college football has a ginormous power gap. And what I mean by that is the gap between the top 3 programs in the nation, Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State, is significant when compared to the quality of the other programs in the nation. And I'm talking top-tier college football programs: Notre Dame, Florida, A&M, Cincinnati, Georgia, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Oregon, USC. Teams like that, if any of them played, if any of those other in the group on the right side of your screen played any of the 3 on the left side of your screen, I would 10 times out of 10 I would either pick Clemson, Alabama, or Ohio State. No doubt. I would not pick the upset. It just, these guys over here are just significantly better. And I know what you're saying, but Notre Dame beat Clemson. Come on, guys. Trevor Lawrence didn't play. 8 other starters didn't play, and it took double overtime to beat them. So the gap between Clemson and Notre Dame is significant. Clemson's going to pull up to the ACC championship game, and barring an injury to either Trevor Lawrence, really just Trevor Lawrence, Clemson's going to go in there and roll Notre Dame. Alabama, I don't think they'll stomp Florida, but they'll definitely beat Florida handedly, in my opinion. They just can outshoot Florida, and their defense is better. And then Ohio State, assuming they make the Big Ten championship game, not because they're going to lose a game before then, but simply because of coronavirus issues, if they cancel another game, they won't play enough games to qualify for the Big Ten championship. But assuming they do, they're going to play, I don't know, it doesn't matter. The gap between Ohio State and the rest of the Big Ten is so ginormous. It's huge, gigantic. But they're going to roll through. Somebody else is going to make the playoff at the number 4 spot. I don't know who that's going to be. I would assume that it would be one loss Notre Dame, who beat Clemson and whose only loss is to at full strength Clemson team. I don't think it'd be a 2-loss Florida. I don't think it would be Texas A&M without them having played in the SEC championship game or anything like that. But the point is that those 3, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, I'm just going to call them the big 3. So if I refer to them as the big 3, you know that's who I'm talking about. They are so much better. And it's really signified by the college football playoff results. Since the 2014 season, when the college football playoff has started, there have been, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There have been 6 champions crowned under the new college football playoff system, which I love, by the way. 5 out of the 6 were one of the big 3, and the only time it wasn't, it was LSU last year, who is perhaps one of, if not the greatest single college football team in history. So it took one of the greatest teams of all time to knock one of them off their throne. And guess who LSU played? Clemson, one of the big 3. And it was the closest game they had played all year. One of, I should say. LSU last year was fantastic. But the point is that this gap is huge, and it's signified by where it matters most. Who's winning the chips? And I wish there was a little more parity, maybe not a lot more, but, maybe just a touch, And I think that as long as it won't become too bad, as long as it's not the same one of those big 3 winning it every time. Ohio State hasn't won since the very first college football playoff, so I'll give them that. but they're still one of the ones that won, and they're just so much better. Okay, so the reason you ask is why? It's recruiting. Obviously, they've got three of the best coaches. Definitely Alabama and Clemson. I think Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney are probably 1-2 in America. And then Ryan Day is showing he's not just Urban Meyer's he's just piggybacking off Urban Meyer's success. He's continuing it. They've got the best coaches, the best facilities, the best players. You put all that together, and you're of course going to get an elite level program. The question is, how do you fix this? I think that, if you get a team like LSU last year where everything just kind of lines up and they're super stacked and everything like that, that is something, but that's not a consistent option. I think, honestly, what you have to do is cut back the number of scholarships that each team gets. Now, obviously, this can affect every team, not just these big three, but it would stop Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State from picking up 5 to 4 extra 5 stars, probably another 2 to 3 4 stars, and another 3-star every year that they normally would get if you cut back the number of scholarships. And then, that group of 30 players gets equally distributed, and maybe that's the difference maker that Notre Dame or Florida or Georgia or A&M or Cincinnati needs to get over the hump over these big three. And I think, that would definitely mix it up, because right now I think that the power gap between these three is ginormous. And I think that the power gap between conferences is also significant. I think the SEC is by far, in a way, the single-handedly best conference. I really don't think there's competition. Next, this year at least, I would put the ACC, but that's only because Notre Dame is temporarily in there. They're not going to be in the ACC next year. That's kind of a one-team conference. The Big 12 has been a one-team conference with Oklahoma running it. Big 10 is definitely a one-team conference with Ohio State on top and no one really else challenging their supremacy. And then the Pac-12, the Pac-12 is so far behind those other four. And I think that's just because they just don't care about football as much as, these southern and these southern states, which makes sense. Football is super popular in the South, and I get that. And so maybe it's just not as important or whatever. But coming into this year, the highest ranked Pac-12 team was 15th, and that was Oregon. I think they were 15th. They were like 15th or 20th or something like that. But that gap between even the conferences is significant. Between the top three teams and everyone else is significant. Between the conferences is significant. And obviously you can't change geography. You can't, I guess technically you could, but you can't just up and move Alabama and put it in, Los Angeles. You can't do that. But I think honestly the best thing to do is just to cut back the number of scholarships, not by a lot. By maybe you go from 75 to 65 or I don't know what the number is, but just cut it back by 10, and then you'd get a lot more parity, I believe. And now, granted, I don't mind the excellency. I think it's always an interesting race on who's going to win it out of these three. However, I would like to see more teams be able to be put in that mix. Honestly, if there was a big 5, that would be perfect. Or a big 6, a big 5 or 6, if an Oklahoma or maybe another SEC team could consistently be up there year in and year out, then I feel like that would create a lot of interesting things. Because right now, we know that those three are the lock for the playoff, and then there's a fight for the 4th spot. But there's a big 5, or a big 6, you've got 6 teams jostling for 4 spots, and, that would be super interesting, and I would love to see that. But overall, the gap between Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State is ginormous. It's getting more obvious each year as we continue down this college football playoff road, and, even other teams like Notre Dame, Florida, A&M, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, all of them are definitely not as good as these guys. It's definitely just a parity issue, and I think a way you could alleviate it is just to have less scholarships per team and it would be interesting. More interesting. Obviously, I love college football. I'm still going to talk about it. I'm still going to watch it. But it would be more interesting. It would create a little more sense of drama and urgency, and I think it'd be better for the sport overall. So thank you for watching today's video. Make sure you leave your thoughts on this topic below in the comments. Check out all the linked content right here and in the description. You have a great day.